Welcome to another Joyful Gym with Audrey Joy. There is a time to fight for God, and there is a time to let God fight for you. Several weeks ago, I talked about a story in 2nd Chronicles where there were 2 invading armies coming to Judah, and King Jehoshaphat was scared. But the word of the Lord came that they were to just stand down. The people were to go to their battle stations, and they were just to stand and watch what the Lord would do. And at the end of the day, both of the invading armies were wiped out. There wasn't a man left standing. And the only thing that those people had to do was just to stand down and watch God work. God showed his might to Judah that day because they were obedient. But as I study scripture, I think this is sort of the exception rather than the rule. It seems to me that most of the time, God involves people in his process. Take the story in Nehemiah 4, for example, and let me set the table. The Jewish people had been exiled for about 70 years. They have returned. They were working to rebuild the temple, and then Nehemiah comes to town to help them rebuild the wall around Jerusalem to protect it. At this point in the story, in chapter 4, the wall was fully enclosed. However, it was only half the height that it needed to be, so easily breached. But the people had accomplished a lot in a short period of time, and we know that because verse 6 tells us that the people had a mind to work. But another threat from outside forces comes upon them, and Nehemiah takes really big steps to keep the people safe. Everybody, and I do mean everybody, had some sort of weapon. He grouped families together. They slept near the wall, and they took turns pulling guard. One group would pull guard, the other would work on the wall. They kept their weapons with them, even when they went to get water. But the people were still afraid. Well, Nehemiah says this in verse 14, "When I saw their fear, I rose and I spoke to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people. Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses." Nehemiah redirected their focus away from the enemy and focused them on what and who they were fighting for. There are times in life we have to fight. Soldiers go to war. People fight illnesses. Husbands and wives fight to save a marriage. People rise up to save a nation or preserve a way of life. We might fight as people, prepared and armed with the tools we need to succeed in battle, but at the end of the day, the battle is the Lord's. Often the people are the hands and feet, the soldiers on the ground, if you will, that God uses in battle, but the battle is God's. And Nehemiah reminds the people of this in verse 20. He says, "Our God will fight for us." It's my prayer for you and for me that the Lord will give us the discernment to know when we're called to fight and when we're called to stand down. But in either case, make no mistake about it, the battle is the Lord's. If you found value in this gem, share it with a friend and follow me on my Facebook page, This Is For Me. If you're not already a Joyful Gym subscriber, you can change that. Just log into my website, thisisforme.com, or hey, shoot me an email at audreyjoy@thisisforme.com. Be joyful.